What's up, everybody? On this week's episode, we got a special guest here, Mr. Ross Walters. Ross is joining us from Cumming, Georgia. He owns Valor Coffee in Alpharetta. And where's your second location?
Dunwoody.
Dunwoody and Alpharetta. So check out Valor Coffee if you're ever around. Ross, we'll get right to it, man. If you started a coffee business, first off, how old were you when you did that?
19.
19. Holy smokes.
Yep.
So we'll start there then. And so what did it look like before you started business? I guess you graduated high school. How did you get into that?
Dawsonville, right?
Dawsonville, baby. Home of Bill Elliott.
I know.
Dawsonville?
Yeah,
Dawsonville.
I went to like one dirt track race.
Yeah. People ask me like what my background is, like when I'm in the cafe, and I'm just like high school.
High school is
High school is my background. But it came from us working in cafes, and I started with two other business partners, Ethan and Riley. And we were just the angsty 19-year-olds that had a lot of ideas, not a lot of maturity, but a lot of passion about coffee and about how things should or shouldn't be going. You know, that type of like a young cat that's like got a lot of energy, but not a lot of experience. Like that was exactly
Very driven.
who we were.
You're dangerous in that phase of life.
Yeah, and annoying. So we're just like, man, we can do this better than our bosses. So I was working behind the bar one day at this cafe I was working at, and somebody called and they were like, hey, I'm planning a wedding for my daughter. Do you guys do espresso catering? And I was like, no, but my business partner and I do. And I was like, we haven't really talked about starting a business at that point, but we're just going to try to make it work. So nothing came of that event, but it spawned, the idea of like, when we really could do our own thing if we didn't have to jump right to like opening a full coffee shop.
It sparked the interest in owning the business. So when you were 19 and you're starting that, does that mean you already loved coffee at that time?
Yeah.
Because coffee's a big deal. Brent, it's a bigger deal to Brent than it is to me.
I love coffee.
Like,
I love coffee.
Describe this to me. When you're 19, you're starting a coffee business. Do you have to try a bunch of coffees, or do you just say like how does it work?
Well, there's this scene of specialty coffee or third wave coffee. I don't know if you guys have heard.
It's like an underground thing,
Well, it's like, you walk into a cafe and there's like white walls and cactuses everywhere and they pour latte art. Like that's the vibe of specialty coffee.
Yeah.
And so we were already into that.
Okay.
So, like, have you guys ever tried Counterculture coffee? You heard of this? They were one of the first big specialty coffee roasters that sort of went nationwide. But my buddy used to make pour-overs of this coffee from Counterculture at his house, and I would try it, and I would just be amazed by the fact that coffee could taste like raspberries, and it didn't just taste like cigarettes.
Yeah.
So just that revelatory experience was like, man, this is different. This is cool. I want to do this. So I was already passionate about it.
That's cool.
And we were listening to a podcast at the time. It was like one of the only coffee podcasts from Cat and Cloud, which was still is a roaster out in Santa Cruz, California. And they would talk about business. They talk about, it's similar to our podcast now that we do. So we listened to that, and that really stoked the fire and inspired us in a lot of ways early on. So
you're 19. And your business partners, how do you guys get into where, because like when we started our business, we were in our late 20s. So finding out how to get a lease, finding out how to afford the lease, those things are a little easier at that age. At 19, how do you find a spot and say, we're going to put a coffee in here or a coffee shop in here and start renovating it? Like, where did you get the funding, or was the dream just that big? You did whatever it took. Like, how'd you get there?
Well, one thing early on and still today is that we asked a lot of questions from a lot of people, and we just thought of anyone in our lives that had any more experience than we did, which was not hard at the time. And so, we just asked the stupid questions like, what's a lease? Like how do you use a spreadsheet to your benefit as a business owner, or whatever it is? Well, and so back to the call that we got in the store of like catering a wedding. We didn't start with a cafe. We started off with a cart. So we did a Kickstarter, raised $10,000 on Kickstarter. Kickstarter took 1,000 of it. And then we got a Chase 0% interest credit card.
Let's go.
For like the first 18 months or whatever. Put $7,000 on it. And we were like, if we can't pay this off in the next 18 months, we're not going to do this business. So just kind of like took a bet on ourselves and did weddings, movie sets, literally anything that we could do. And then one day we were catering a trunk or treat in some neighborhood, like doing hot chocolates for kids. Not the coolest event, you know, that us coffee guys wanted to do. But this dude walked up to our cart and was like, "What is this?" We're like, "You know, we're Valor. We're mobile espresso cart." He was like, "I'm opening a co-working space in downtown Alpharetta. You guys should be the coffee shop in our co-working space." And we were like, "Yeah," because we all wanted to go full-time with the business. We were all working 90-hour weeks at that point, and it was terrible. But we were putting in the investment.
That grind.
Yeah. So that was our first big break, to be able to like get daily revenue coming in the business and like actually have a location. We were in the back of an alley, and we only had an A-frame sign, you know, to show people where we were. And you know, early on we would do like $150 gross revenue per day, and it was just like barely enough to pay one of us
a little bit,
a tiny bit.
Yeah.
So we just eased into it, man. Like so many opportunities have come just from us being available.
Yeah.
And
that's
us
a lesson right there.
You said 3 things already. You said ask big questions, be available, and then you also said, you know, don't be afraid to go find out people from your network that are doing better than you. Like reach out to the people doing more.
Yep.
Which your mindset at 19 sounds incredible.
How did you come up with the name Valor?
Well, we were sitting in a coffee shop looking at a thesaurus, and we were just like, there's not very many coffee companies that have a name starting with V. And so we chose it, and we didn't have much thought behind it at the time, but over time we've attached thought to it. We've always been really big on mission, vision, and values in our company. And a lot of times when people come into our cafes, like the thing they say is like, the coffee's awesome, but there's just this thing about this place that's like, I leave encouraged, or I leave uplifted, or I leave loved.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate that deeper aspect to our business, that what we're doing is selling a product. We're taking people's orders, taking their money, giving them change, and giving them coffee, and then, you know, giving them a place to sit for a second. But all of that deeper impact to the business has really helped us step into the name Valor, because Valor is not a word we use all the time. It kind of has this deep meaning. And it also means courage in the face of adversity, which I just dig that. And,
I like that
we stick to our values no matter what's happening. So there's different ways to look at it, but really we just picked it and then have attached.
That's great.
Yeah, Valor's in the Bible a lot.
Yeah.
And for you guys, like I've been to Valor Coffee in Alpharetta. Check it out. Like that place is sick. We did one. My wife sells like vintage clothes, and she did one sell there, and she'd been doing it for like 2 years. And that one day at your place at like Saturday morning, 10 a.m., she made the most money up to that point in her career doing that at your spot. So I really love that spot.
Downtown Alpharetta. So how long did it take you guys to go from mobile cart to actually having a location?
Well, somewhere in there we started roasting coffee.
Okay.
So 2018, I think it was January of 2018, we started the pop-up, and it was the cart in the back of this alley in this co-working space. So kind of built that business up really gradually. We wanted to start roasting coffee, so we rented out someone else's roasting space and brought in all of our green coffee and our roasting equipment and a Honda Civic. It was awesome. And then the actual location that we ended up opening, we were looking all over Metro Atlanta for a spot. And it ended up being in the same exact building that we were in for the pop-up. So like I said, we were in the back, and there's this office that was going out of business in the front of the building, like street side where we're at now. And it became available. So we just had them, tear down all the walls. And that was, I think it was August of 2019.
Wow.
So,
by that point, did you have to go get another credit card, or by that point was the money there? Because I'm just thinking about a 19-year-old starting this business, and the heart that it takes, like how much you've had to learn since you started. But how did you get in there? Did you have to go get a loan? Did you have to?
We had a friend that went to church with us that invested some money. Well, he didn't invest it. He loaned it. And he was like, just took his money out of stocks and charged us interest.
Wow.
So
What a great friend.
yeah, that was that. And then what we also did was a buy coffee for a year campaign, but it was pay what you want. So we had this little flyer on our cart when we were in the pop-up that had all these assorted options you could get. It was like either free, not free, but like unlimited coffee for a year. There's a few other things you could get, and it was pay what you want. And the kind of like shoulder nudge there is like pay more than what you would think, because we're trying to open a cafe, and people did. So that was kind of a play to like get cash flow up front, and our cost for a cup of coffee is not that significant when you span it over a whole year of unlimited coffee. And it's like the classic subscription model of like when you get a gym membership. Absolutely. And how often do they actually go? Yeah. So there was that. There was our buddy that helped us financially. And then we had just like a little bit of working capital, but the pop-up allowed us to go full-time with the business, which really accelerated it. So
yeah. Well, that just sounds to me, even from like the Kickstarter in the beginning to just, bootstrapping it, it seems like you were very creative and very driven. And I think you have to have that, because when we started our businesses, it's like, when you start from scratch, there's a lot of challenges that come, even like figuring out how taxes work, figuring out payroll, all the stuff that comes up. So do you think it was your drive that got you through, or basically the question I want to get to is, how big was it having business partners? Because I think sometimes when you're by yourself, that drive is good in the beginning, but then you'll burn out if you don't have people around you that are carrying that baton with you. So how did that affect the beginning?
A lot.
Yeah.
We leaned on each other a lot. And when we were 19, we're just so underdeveloped and green and, just starting out in life. Mm-hmm. So we didn't have these clearly defined roles in the company. It was just like, we are just all three going at this thing as much as we can. And I'm a big fan of this concept of burning the bridge when you're starting a business. And I don't think it's for everyone, but when you're 19 and you drop out of college to pursue something, and then you also get married that same year, and you're like, how am I going to provide for my future family? I'm burning the bridge and I'm going full at this thing. You have to. Yeah. Yep. And I think really another way to say that is just commitment. And that's what I tell people, like in our wholesale relationships where we sell coffee to coffee shops. A lot of people come to us when they're starting a cafe, and they come to me asking questions about what grinder they should get and all that. Like, yeah, we'll answer that. But really where I steer the conversation is this, which is this going to be your thing? Is this going, and why? And what stage of life are you in? And are you actually willing to are you willing to pay the price to get a reward that's not that big? And why is that? Because especially in the coffee industry, like back to your point about business partners, we leaned on each other a lot, and we wouldn't be where we are today without each other. But coffee businesses don't make that much money. The margins are razor thin. So even if we have a good gross revenue in the cafe, like we end up pretty much spending every dollar we make because of labor, because of the product we're selling. We're not selling software. So it's like very labor intensive. And so we've had to scale our business to a size that can support a very humble salary for 3 family men. Yeah. So
we relate to that, and that can be challenging.
Yeah. We have 3 business partners as well.
Yeah. So there's pros and cons. And I definitely don't think I could have started a business at 19 by myself.
Yeah, sure.
Because my other 2 guys, like we have really kind of become codependent in one sense, because we've just molded ourselves around ourselves.
Yeah.
Man, where like his strength is my weakness.
That's real.
So
I feel like I'm talking to myself in a sense.
Yeah.
But I think so many people so many people almost get greedy in the beginning with like, man, I've got this great idea. And we always talk about how ideas are easy. The implementation is what's challenging. And it's so easy to get burnt out when you're on an island by yourself. I mean, literally, if I didn't have Rob and Alex by my side these last 4 years, I know I wouldn't be sitting here today. Yeah. And it does add challenges, because you've got different, personality types. All that stuff comes with that. But for us having, we have God at the center of our business, and that's really helped. The Christian morals have really helped our business partnership.
Yeah. And going back to what he said too on burnout, I was just talking to a friend yesterday who started his own company in 21, and he just went so hard and booked all of his clients and made himself so thin. He quit after 8 months.
Yep.
And we were having this conversation talking about how much better he got from it and all the things he went through and everything. But luckily, I've never even once, I don't know about you, I've never come close to burning out. I mean, I've gotten stressed the crap out and cried and stuff, but I've never been once like, man, I'm so burnt out. I hate this.
Quit.
Yeah, I hate this.
Did that play a role in y'all's beginning? Like you said, y'all had some friends in church. So did Christian principles play a role in that?
Yeah.
And then keeping each other held accountable too.
I love that.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, the amount that we've put into Valor does not equal what we've gotten out of it, in the sense of like, God has blessed it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah.
And he has like exponentially increased what we're doing. We put in something, he blesses it, and then it's like it's a multiplying effect. And that's not because we have some business strategy that you need to apply to your business today or you'll go out of business. It's like, follow God. Because like he loves to bless people because he loves people.
That's right.
Correct.
And like when you run your business in an honorable way over a long period of time, there may be other people that leapfrog ahead of you sometimes. But like one of my favorite phrases is, if you want to go fast, go slow. If you want to go far, go together. So like that, I apply that to my partners, like we've moved slow, but we've moved methodically and we've moved very intentionally. And we've probably spent too much time like chopping it up, like figuring out what we could or should do or whatever. And like you were saying earlier, the implementation of ideas is so important. And we've had to grow in that a lot over the years, but I don't know. I guess we're not good enough to go fast.
Yeah.
Like I guess
it's very wise.
That's just where we're at. And like the better we've gotten at business, the faster we can go.
Sure.
But it doesn't mean that's always the right call.
Yeah.
So this concept of stewardship, like I want to steward what God has put in front of me. And my business partner, Ethan, told me the other day, I was complaining to him about money. And he was like, you got to remember that you're not the provider, you're the steward.
Wow.
And so like, I got to provide for my family. I got to go do the work. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to work my ass off every day, of course. But I'm the steward. Even of the work I get, I'm just receiving that work and then I perform it. So like my body could completely fail tomorrow and then I would be completely screwed. I'm not a provider at that point.
Yeah.
So I think that concept too has really pushed us forward, kept us aligned. And having God, like you said, at the core, at the center, not like you don't have to talk about God all the time or like do a certain thing or dress a certain way or whatever. But like, yeah, he loves to bless people that act honorably.
Amen, bro.
Clip that. I mean, that right there,
that's why we do this.
And there's not many, we found in the business world, unfortunately, that's not the MO, that's not what everybody's doing, but it's been such a blessing because it's interesting. We say it all the time. We treat our business almost like a ministry.
Yeah.
Because I think everybody should treat everything they do like a ministry.
Yeah.
Personally.
Just with those principles that you mentioned. And so let's go back to the business. So it's 2018 and you start getting in this leasing space. And then I heard you mention that you started distributing coffee to wholesalers.
Yep.
So like, how does that work? So I call you and say, hey, I need some coffee, and you just send it to me and I'll sell it and you get a profit?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the most classic model is a coffee shop down the road, Good Stuff.
Oh yeah, shout out Good Stuff. We love that place.
Dallas, Georgia. So they're like, hey, we're starting a coffee shop. They reach out to us. We play a role in helping them start it because it benefits us.
Yeah.
Because that means we're going to sell them coffee. So I'm going to share my inventory spreadsheet with them. I'm going to like send them my interview template and like anything I can do to push them forward and help them avoid mistakes we've made and so on. We do that. We help train their baristas, all that stuff. And then once they open, we send them coffee and they sell it.
Is this like a franchise model? Like you pay me $10,000 and I'll basically give you the secret to opening up a coffee shop?
No, it's just more of a contract
Contract value? Okay.
Yeah.
And then you're their primary source of coffee or their only source.
Or yeah.
There's different ways to structure it. They're either an exclusive partner and you get a certain amount of perks and that puts you in this tier. You could be what's called an anchor partner. So like we're on their espresso and drip, which is the majority of what coffee, they're selling. And then they might bring in another roaster, feature them for a little bit on pour over or whatever it is. And then there's multi-roasters, which is a lot of cafes where they are like bringing in different roasters all the time. And we might provide that account with a little bit less support just because they're mostly just buying our coffee. But I like to go way above and beyond for those people so that once their main roaster does something they don't like, I'm the first person they think of.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's great.
And so let me ask you this, what pushes you to continue to innovate the coffee industry? Because going from a cafe to go into wholesaling, is there a next step or, what's pushing you to change it?
I don't care about innovating the coffee industry. I just care about my business. And back to the stewardship thing, I'm not trying to change the world or become the biggest thing or do something flashy or change everything. I'm just trying to steward the relationships that I have. I'm on the wholesale side. So I do sales and I do we call it partner success, but it's I'm the one working with good stuff,
Okay.
Supporting them. I just want to steward those relationships in the best, most genuine, most valuable way I can. And I want to do the same thing in our cafes and inspire our employees to do the same thing. Hey, don't try to do anything crazy. Just look someone in the eyes and serve them really well and be intentional with the product you have. Because what we're doing is a good thing. So it's going to move forward. So that pushes me. And I think also what pushes me is my family.
Yes.
You
said you got married at 19?
20.
20?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And then we had kids pretty early on. So I've got a 4-year-old and a 1.5 old. And, I'm the sole breadwinner in the family. So that definitely pushes me.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm accountable to them and I'm accountable to God. And yeah, that's probably what pushes me.
It's a good kind of pressure,
Yeah,
it really is because it drives me. And similar to you, it's my family is very important. And when you run your business the way we're talking here, your employees become your family. So there's also pressure there because we've got some kids that we not only go to church with, but they work for us. And to watch them grow, oh my goodness, there's no better feeling.
It's true.
It's amazing. So have you guys transitioning from that, or would you say the bigger side of the business at this point is the wholesale and then the cafes are second, or are they pretty equal in your focus and what's bringing in revenue?
Well, that's the thing is the cafes are those. I'm not tooting my own horn or anything, but I think that they're some of the busiest cafes in the Southeast.
Wow.
Gross wise. But like I said, we spend almost every dime we make in the cafes.
The baristas and everybody, just a heavy payroll, I would assume.
It's heavy payroll.
Yeah.
And it's heavy overhead.
Yeah.
And, we're trying to dial in waste and we're trying to also I take a little bit of money and, I got 2 business partners. So it's kind of back to that. But those 2 cafes are sort of at their ceiling gross wise. They could go up a little bit, but it's not going to be a crazy thing. Whereas the wholesale and the e-commerce side of the business doesn't have a ceiling.
Yeah.
It will be as big as we not want it to be, but
there's no ceiling at all.
We can get a bigger facility. We can get another roaster. We can hire more people, whatever it is. So all 3 of the businesses are more or less, they're similar gross revenue numbers. But, it takes 4 people to run our roastery. We're roasting 2 days a week. And then for the cafes, we're open 7 days a week and it takes 13 people to run.
Wow.
So they're 2 different businesses.
Yeah.
And that's been weird and hard to navigate from a marketing side because it's what even is Valor? Well, it's a coffee company, but we've got these 2 very different businesses. We've got the roasting side and we've got the cafes. We also have a cart and, We have a podcast. So it's like we have all these things that we do.
We can relate, and and you don't want to over market it. Like you don't, because basically what happens to us is we do the insurance and real estate and flip houses. So one day you post you're flipping a house, and it's like, oh, you don't do insurance anymore? Like, no, exactly. I still do, but I'm also a realtor. Like in trying to explain all these things, so we understand that. So how do you get around that?
I don't know.
Still figuring it out.
We're hoping for some insight there.
Well, the thing is like you have one. Do you have one business name for all three businesses?
We have 3 separate business names.
Okay. Well, so you guys are doing it differently because for me, it's like, okay, well, I could start an Instagram and a different name for each of these different businesses, but then that would take away the brand momentum from all of them.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, kind of what you said about like, well, one day I post about this and one day I post about this. That's a thing. Our cafes don't need marketing.
Honestly,
really.
I mean, I've been to it
because
that's what happens when you build a good brand.
Well,
and in the right spot.
Yeah, the locations are good. It's nice if we post on Instagram because somebody will be scrolling on their thing and they will see a croissant and they'll be like, oh, I'm hungry, and then they go to our thing. But so that's good. But like coffee shops are they're great. Like everybody likes them.
Yeah.
So they're just gonna go to them.
That's right.
Whereas wholesale needs a lot of marketing.
Yeah.
And it needs a lot of conversations, and it needs a lot of. So I don't know, guys.
I like the concept though. It sounds like you've done something similar to what we've had to implement lately. Is different, like having business partners use that to your advantage. Different people focus on different parts of the business. I think for a lot of times when we were trying to figure it out, we were all trying to do the same thing, but nobody had clear direction on like, okay, it's almost like, let's just charge it. But it's like, it's smarter for you to go up there. I'll go down here and send somebody in the basement. Let's make sure everything's getting taken care of. So that's what we've had to adapt to. And now I'm more focused on like real estate side, and he's running the insurance side, and our other business partner we're both focused on the real estate. So it's been great. We've been doing it for like 3 months now, but it's the pivoting that comes,
Yeah. Yeah, what you said about being focused on one thing, that's real.
It is.
That is so real. And there's benefits to all 3 of us charging at one thing, but we're not as highly specialized at one thing, so we won't be as effective. Whereas if we become specialized at different parts of the business and build teams around us in those specialized parts of the businesses, it's like I don't get to see my boys as often, but like boys meaning business partners.
Yeah.
But I think it moves faster.
Yes, it does.
And better, more value.
And it's more organized too. I mean, for us, like last year, like he just said, we've been about 3 months on our trial where we have all 3 playing a separate role. And last year we all were kind of running at the same thing. And when you go back and look at the numbers don't suck. It's not like we did anything wrong. It's just this is way more efficient. This is way more calculated. This is way more organized.
We scale it faster.
We can do it faster.
Yeah, like you said.
It's better.
How did you get so wise so fast? How old are you now?
27.
Man.
You must read the Bible a lot.
Do you read Proverbs every now and then?
I read scripture for sure. Yeah.
It works, man. But like the things that you're saying took us so long to learn, and you can't learn that without going through it. I don't think.
Experience.
Oh yeah. Yes. I was doing a tasting the other day at a potential wholesale customer, and I was kind of nervous because it was a big potential thing. And I was thinking beforehand about how much better I feel about this tasting right now, this like kind of sales pitch, having experience under my belt than I used to when I first started doing them. Because I just felt like I was BSing all the time because I literally was.
Yeah,
and
that's real.
And like on this topic of building confidence, like I feel like the harsh truth that I came to is like I had no reason to be confident. Even if I like rah-rah'd myself up and like, God, a lot of great people around me. It's like, dude, you don't have a reason to be confident because you haven't put in the work and you haven't like done the reading and you haven't done the years of like failing and learning and winning and all the things that come. So, and your product isn't as awesome as you want it to be. Like, so I feel like the more I've just leveled with myself on that stuff, and then like, if I feel a certain negative emotion, if I feel like I lack confidence, or it's like, okay, well, have you really memorized your script? Have you gone through your talking points of like what you want to talk about? Have you prepared? Because oftentimes it was like, no, I didn't. And so I was like, yeah, I wasn't confident, and I didn't give myself a reason to be confident.
Bro, I'm so glad we brought you on here. You are riveting, and on top of that, we have so many people that are either 18 to 27 or just thinking about business that need to hear these
That's
things.
a lot of
dude.
people that watch the show. So
Yeah.
you're so right.
I want to ask you this, just being a coffee connoisseur. I wrote this. Me and our producer talked about this morning. So basically, that first sip of coffee in the morning, I mean, it's important to people.
It's really nice.
There's some people that break the bed and they don't feel right until they have it. So, I mean, really, Brent probably, I don't know what his habit is now, but dude can drink like 3-4 cups a day. Maybe you need to wholesale to him. But
he might not qualify for that price. We'll see.
But when did you take your first sip of coffee, and describe like what that was like for you, and then what do you try to give people each morning as they go and take that?
My first sip of coffee was my dad's Folgers pop with tons of cream and sugar in it. And then it made me have to poop really bad afterwards.
That's real.
So that's just what I remember.
That's the realest thing you said.
Yeah. How old were you?
Oh, I don't know. Probably 11 or something.
Let's go.
And I was like, can I try that? And he was like, you're not going to like it. And I was like, I want to try it. So, he dumped a ton of cream and sugar in it. And I hate this. I hate this so much. And then it had the effect afterwards. But my first, as an adult, I'm into this. This is awesome. Is what I said earlier about my buddy making pour overs at his house. That coffee from counterculture. It was so mind blowing to me that coffee could taste like other things besides coffee.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that hit me so hard. It doesn't hit everybody the same way, but it was like, okay, I'm going to have a career in this.
I mean, I haven't studied coffee, but is that fairly a new concept? Like, when did Starbucks get in the state? 2007? 6? I haven't read Howard Schultz's book.
I saw some stuff on that.
The whole thing is like the first wave of coffee in America in the West, probably worldwide, but probably in the West. So I'm not that well read on this. But first wave was like, we have coffee in grocery stores.
Okay.
So people are having coffee in their house. They're brewing at their house. Second wave is the introduction of the coffee shop into our culture. So espresso machines, the fact that you could go get a cappuccino around the corner, and that was the second wave. Third wave was a lot more of a focus on who is growing this coffee and where. And also in the third wave, you have people focusing less on roast level and more on the coffee itself. So it's not about light, medium, and dark roast. Choose between the three that you like. It's more of this coffee is a Colombia Nariño grown by Wilford Lamastis, and it's a Pacamara variety, and it's it's the same thing as wine. Wine has gotten
now I know how
that way.
people feel when I talk about insurance. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That's so interesting, because I think Starbucks almost is the one everybody thinks about, but I personally never go sit in Starbucks, but we do a bunch of meetings at Good Stuff. It's just that different. So I feel like it's almost like breweries, how breweries went wild.
Yeah.
And then now it's everybody wants to start a coffee shop, but I think it's getting harder to be successful in that. I would say, do you see coffee shops that are failing, or is it
Yeah.
Is the market oversaturated?
No.
Good.
No, but real estate is so expensive that people probably shouldn't open coffee shops right now.
Difficult.
Wow.
But if you have the right opportunity, then do it. But I know in my personal experience, we opened a shop in 2019, and we also opened a shop in 2023. Those were two very different experiences.
I bet.
Financially. And one of them was a lot more expensive. One of the second cafe in Dunwoody, it is bigger, and we do have some nicer things in there. It's a little bit less bootstrapped, but you're selling coffee, man. You got to sell a lot of it to be successful.
Yeah. And it's one cup at a time for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, there's group orders and everything, but there's also really high turnover in the service industry in general, but in coffee specifically. But if you care about your employees and you have good culture, there'll be lower turnover. But we're not looking to open a third one right now, just because of where the economy is at and how much more expensive it is to open any build out of any kind, really.
So you would say start with maybe you called it a cart, but I was going to say a food truck, but there's no food maybe. So a coffee cart or coffee truck first, and then maybe try to build that into something. And does the same apply for smoothies? Is it just the drink industry, or is coffee it's separate thing?
I don't really know the margins on smoothies or how long it takes to make one, but I would assume that you can train someone to make a smoothie easier than you can train someone to pour a nice latte.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like,
I believe that.
so I can't speak on smoothies, but as far as coffee goes, like I think really the only reason to start with a cart is less for I'm about to build up all this working capital and finally pay for my coffee shop in cash. Less about that and more it's about you. Like for me, I had never started a business before, so it didn't matter that it was coffee cart. It was just like the fact that I was starting a business, what gave me the tools I needed to eventually somewhat succeed with coffee shops. So if you have business experience, I mean, I would say avoid the risk of starting your own coffee cart and just go get a job behind a bar and like get some chops like behind the bar.
Get your feet wet.
Yeah. And then like don't be the guarantor on a lease. Just be an employee and gain some experience. And then if you've got cash or you've got resources, then open one. But
that's a great point you just made, the guarantor on the lease part. But really, his point being, go gain the skills. Like when I got into insurance, I was 22 years old, and I didn't become an insurance agency owner until I was 26 because I had to build the skills. Brent called me to partner with him because I had built a skill set in insurance, and he wanted to get into insurance. People are going to call Ross about coffee because he's built a coffee wealth of knowledge surrounded by coffee, and he's got the experience. So
that's exactly right.
Just go get the skill set first.
I think it's so wise too to not. Sometimes you have to burn the bridge and you have to do what you said, and you guys kind of did it, but you guys were so methodical because you bit it off one piece at a time. And you probably had to at your age. So I think there is a benefit to starting early, because we talked about it on our last podcast. If you were in a position now where you were making a living working for someone else and you had 2 kids, it would be way harder to start.
I'm not burning bridges. Yeah, at that point. No.
You can't. So it's very cool for you to have that drive. And you can, like for somebody that has kids, it's possible to start. It just adds to the risk, you know?
100%.
So for me, the last question that I want to ask, the show's called Pave the Way because our goal is to help people, start businesses, because that was the best thing that ever happened to us. 2-part question. Well, I'll ask the first one, then I'll ask the second one. But essentially, what would you say to someone who's getting ready to start a business, and kind of your experience of not really having a wealth of knowledge going into it? What would you say to somebody in those same shoes?
A lot of stuff we already talked about. I mean, get people around you that know more than you. That's going to be good because they'll tell you things you don't know, but it's also good because those people have connections you don't have and you need. So that's one thing. The other thing is consider why you're doing it. What phase of life are you in? For me, I dropped out of college. My parents were going to pay for my college, and I'm like, no thanks. I'm going to start my own thing. So this better work. And I was also moving out at the time and getting married. So it's like all of those things were like fires under my butt to figure it out. So not everybody is in a stage of life like that though. So those things made me keep going when it was hard. So I would ask yourself that question, like what are you accountable to? What are you going to be? What's going to keep you going whenever it feels like it's not working? I would say those 2 things.
That's great. And then the second part of that question is, as you're building businesses, we kind of talked off air about it, but we like to talk a lot about investing. And you said you do have the desire to later in life get into investment, but what I want to talk about is how critical it is to establish a business that is getting cash flow. Businesses, a lot of people don't realize this, but small business is one of the best investments in the world. So speak to that a little bit about how, you're using this as an investment, because you put a lot of work into this,
Yeah. Investment in the sense that you put in something and then you get a bigger return than what you put in. And that hopefully that return involves money. I don't know about that yet because I have put in a ton and I haven't got a good return. So I don't know what to say about that other than that's been my experience. And I think one reason why that has gone slower is we haven't always been good about really building out what our business model was. And what that involves is things like a P&L where you have your gross revenue and then all of your expenses, and at the very bottom you have your net profit. And how much is that profit, and what percentage of the gross revenue is the net profit, and what are you going to do with that net profit? And we just really zeroed in on all those things this year. It's always been back of mind, but it should have been top of mind. Because I think if we would have had that more in the front of our minds, we would have made different decisions. I have zero regrets about how we've done things, and I'm very grateful and all that. But talking about investment is interesting because most of the return that I have reaped has not been financial. And I wouldn't be the man I am today, husband, father, friend. I would not be any of those things had it not been for starting Valor. And so that's been a huge blessing and a huge return. And I've sown that return into other things that I didn't know would happen. I think it'll pay off one day financially.
Man,
I think
you're
so
onto
too.
something. It's
Yeah.
delayed gratification. What you just said was so good for people to hear, is because you are putting in the work now. And when you're sitting, even I think when you're my age, I'm 32, you're going to be like, wow, that was worth it, because I see you and me in a sense, because I was that same guy. It's like, man, I'm grinding, but now you start to see the light at the end of the tunnel when everything, because I'm very impressed by your knowledge and the businesses that you have created. So man, just keep going.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be great.
That's the plan.
And I love how you said, like, I've put in the work and I don't have the result yet, bro. That's how it goes. Like when you lay that foundation, I mean, it's like the sowing and reaping. You plant the seed, it takes a minute for the tree to pop up.
Yep.
It takes a while. So last question I have, you go to a coffee shop, doesn't have to be Valor. I guess it could be good stuff. It could be wherever. What coffee are you ordering?
My most ideal order is usually one that people don't fulfill. Because what I want ideally is a sampler pack, if you will. Like my most ideal order is a split shot of espresso. One of them is just an espresso. One of them is like a little mini cappuccino. That's called a 1-in-1. And then I want just like a little bit of drip, like a little bit of filter coffee, so that I can try their full range of what they're serving. But that's not on anyone's menu, you know, and I also don't order that because I know that it's just kind of going to bother me.
Complicated. I love that answer. Well, guys, if you're in Alpharetta, if you're in Dunwoody, go check out Ross Walter's shop, and it's called Valor Coffee. What are you guys on Instagram at?
Valor.coffee.
On Instagram, valor.coffee. Check them out. Go enjoy a cup, and thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. Man,
Perfect.
great job.
Yeah, was that worth the hour and a half drive, man?
It's great.